Hello, and welcome to the Sales, Wellness, and Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Fazell. This podcast will bring you cutting edge sales strategies from top performers and executives in the tech industry, as well as insights from wellness experts on creating and maintaining a balance in your personal and professional lives. My goal is to provide you with great weekly content so that you can gain valuable insight to help you be the best version of yourself. So, without further delay, let's get started. Rob, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How do you feel being the first guest of the Sales, Wellness, and Performance podcast?
I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I guess
I hope it's going to be a good thing. I hope it's going to be a good thing. Well, let's go ahead. I want to introduce, obviously, the first guest, Robert Rivera, VP of Sales at Dynatrace. I appreciate you being here, brother. Robert and I obviously go back a very long time.
Long time.
I don't even know how long.
Well, I mean, we were 15 when we met in high school, so let's do the math.
We won't we won't tell everybody our age. Let's do that. They can figure that out. Why don't you, Rob, go ahead and just describe your current role at Dynatrace, how long you've been there. Let's start there.
All right. Well, as a matter of fact, I just had an anniversary. So I've been at Dynatrace for 14 years.
Congrats.
So it's been a long time. Started my career, really, I've had a diversified career because I started at the client side. You know, my degree is in computer science. So I was on the technical track and I ended up managing, technical teams and technical environments for banks.
Right.
Back in the days. And that prompted me to see things a little bit different out in the market. So I decided to do consulting. And once I started doing consulting, I realized very quickly that I was finding a lot of opportunities that the sales people were getting. And obviously I was not getting paid on. So I'm like, wait a second, I'm the one finding these opportunities. Maybe I need to start going that sales track. So I started, I went from consulting to solution selling. And ever since then, I've been in sales.
Perfect. I think we have a lot of the same things there, as you know, because my background was more medical, right? Mm-hmm. Early on.
Right.
And I was doing the rehab. And then all of a sudden I started seeing the same thing. I started seeing people that were doing medical sales, making a good amount of money. And I'm like, hey, this is where I think I need to go. And of course, the rest is history from that standpoint. So one of the things, Rob, that we want to that we focus on with sales, wellness, and performance, and is coaching tech sales reps, right? To be obviously the best they can be in their professional environment, but we bring in the whole mindfulness and wellness. You know, my thoughts are that I believe to be that best version of yourself in your professional career,
sure,
you really have to, you kind of have to line that up and make sure that your overall health and that wellness piece is intact.
Very important.
And it really is, because the things that I talk about a lot, whether it's been in some of the articles I've written for the website, talked a little bit about the book that's coming out, Holistic Sales Mastery, that kind of goes through my methodology for helping sales reps. That they're stressful. Sales, tech sales is an extremely stressful role. And it took me a long time to be able to really understand, how do I manage that better, right? Instead of just going day to day thinking, hey, here's what I got to do, here's what I got to do. And we'll go into other pieces of that maybe later and in other podcasts. But for today, I want to get your point of view on the state of tech sales, if you will, from a sales rep perspective.
Well, I think first and foremost, I think we need to go back a little bit and kind of, first of all, sales is not for everyone. Okay. And if you look up sales, it's in the top 5 or 10 of the most stressful jobs.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to early on in my career to start managing. And as I continue to mature in the management leadership roles, then you start, especially in sales, then you start finding out that you're really not a manager. You're more of a coach.
Mhm.
You need to be a coach. If you're managing today, you need to start looking at how do you coach your AEs, right? Your account executives. So with that being said, uh, today with technology is even more complex. Look at the world we live in, you know, the digital transformation, the things that are happening. You know, you have now, you know, environments that are largely hybrid, meaning that you have pieces of your business in the cloud, some are on-prem, you have third-party vendors or service providers are in there working towards the same goals that the business has. And at the end of the day, you have to have some sort of visibility and control of that.
Right.
So you as a salesperson have to understand all those different pieces because, you know, your client today, your prospect, your client most likely is wearing multiple hats. And everybody is concerned about two things that I think are critical today in sales, in technology, I should say. How quickly and how agile can I be to compete in this market?
Mhm.
And that's the understanding in a lot of ways that you have to coach to. Because what I think is that as a leader, you have to understand the outcome. You have to understand those goals. And for that, that's where you create the right processes and the right cadences. But there's a human factor of it because at the end of the day, not everybody sells the same. So you have to understand your salesperson, right? Your processing cadence is still the same. You want people to follow that, but how they do it, how they sell is completely different. So you have to have that human element involved in there to really understand what are the things that these people can or can't do and coach to those things. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, when I was selling, like with companies like Dynatrace, I think there different sales reps typically were type A personalities, right? Typically,
For the most
typically.
part. For the most part, yeah.
You know, I consider myself to be somewhere in the middle of that.
Mhm.
So, you know, and I think you brought up a good point. You also need to understand what obviously where the strengths and weaknesses are. Some people are more on that consultative. Hey, I really like this approach, right? I'm not someone that's going to go in and maybe challenge my buyer. And that's important because sometimes no matter what you may be pushing that rep to do, if it's not in their comfort zone, it's probably going to be a problem for them, right? And for the sales manager, then to kind of figure out, hey, what's the best way that I can help this rep be successful.
No,
Right?
I agree 150% on that. I mean, at the end of the day, um, especially in technical sales, right?
Yeah.
Again, the complexity of it. You have to challenge, right, your prospects and say, you know, a lot of times we have a network. And because we know these people, you know, I know John, I know Mary, you know, they bought from me before. Right away, we tend to jump, you know, from you know, a stage one, let's say, to a stage four, because I bought from this person before, so they're gonna buy from me again. That's not what you're supposed to do. The people that you know, probably the most that you have to challenge and make sure that you understand, hey, listen, we have a relationship, but you still have a job. You still have to make sure that you come up with value add solutions for your business. So my job is really not just to be a sales guy, but to really be a trusted advisor and making sure that these people understand what happens if you don't do this.
Right.
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 And that takes, like you said, you know, that consulting approach of understanding the business impacts, understanding what happens or what doesn't happen when they're looking to do, you know, make an investment in some sort of technology or service, etc. So really understanding the client and the more that you know the people, the more I think you have to challenge them to really get to the state of what needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done, and how do we do this? Does it make sense or it doesn't make sense? The relationship can continue regardless of the outcome.
Right. Right. And again, that can go a lot of different directions because you mentioned how you have to come in and if, you know, well, I know people in this account, right? I know John, like you mentioned, Mary. And you're right. That's it's almost like complacency. You kind of feel like, well, I've got the right person who I'm familiar with, who I've sold to before, or maybe you've got just a really, really good relationship with them. Maybe it's another company that you sold to them. But relying on that is not going to be
No.
successful for you.
And that's when processing cadence
That's
come
right.
into play, or using frameworks like MEDPIC,
Like
right?
MEDPIC,
You you still want to follow the process. You don't want to skip the process, right? Because the minute you do that based on a relationship, what you thought was going to be the outcome could be completely different or nothing at all.
That's right.
So, you know, that goes without saying, whether you know the person, don't know the person. That whole process of understanding what that company is trying to accomplish needs to happen regardless.
True. Yeah, I tell you, the MEDPIC, I was so impressed with it when I went out and got certified in it, that I really was like, man, I wish I would have had that a lot earlier in my sales career, because especially now when you just mentioned it, when technology sales specifically, which is what we focus on here on this show, there is so many different intangibles, right? And there's so many different things that can change that you've got to be aware of. And because it's really the technology that you're selling in a lot of ways is really driving so much that the businesses, cares about, like the mission critical applications, all those things that drive the revenue. So these purchases are extremely important, and the reps really got to have a good understanding of what they're providing or what they're trying to sell to them for, to help solve that, that pain. But also knowing what else is out there, their competitors are, and everything else. So there's a lot that goes into it, obviously, which comes back to the fact that you have to be able to, I think, have a framework in place. You have to be able just to, on a daily basis, if you think that you're going to like wake up in the morning, jot down kind of my to-do list and just go, and it's not that easy. So I think that's the importance of really, you mentioned to it too, your manager having to be a coach as well. Right. So I want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
Do you feel in this day and age, is it difficult though, with managers and everything that they have on their plate, from being able to say, hey, I've got a forecast up, I've got to understand what's in the pipeline, to have the time to really dig in, to do things that personality differences, right? And know how that should treat that.
Sales.
Exactly. Never. Do you think that there's enough time for managers to kind of play that role?
I listen, is it difficult? It could be. Is it impossible? No. To me, it's all about planning and executing. This is not, in sales, it's not a day-by-day job. Right. You need to know, you need to know what your outcome is going to be. You got to have those goals in place, right? We're all driven by one thing in sales, is numbers. So that's where really the pressure comes in, understandably, right? Companies have to report numbers, etc. But I think that if you do a good job on the management/coaching side, it really can make this a lot easier than maybe a lot of people go through. Obviously, representing the right product, representing, the right solution for the customer. There's a lot in there that you have to take into consideration to be successful. We're in a very fast and everyday changing market. And with that, you have to tweak and understand those elements to make sure that you continue to be, at a pace that maybe your customers want to be. But your customers also are shifting. The mentality, the roles are changing, right? We have different roles today that we didn't have before. You have, these digital leaders, sponsors, executive buyers that are now have different roles, because technology is now driving, most of the business. Most of the services are coming from the technology that they're using. So you have to manage and coach to that. But at the same time, you have to, like you said, understand your people. And when you coach, for example, yeah, this is complex, but there are going to be things that we can control. And you cannot focus on things that you cannot control. I always tell my team, we cannot manage what we cannot control. In other words, focus on what you can control, because that you can change, that you can maneuver through. So identifying those things, that's the kind of coaching you have to do. And you have your senior salespeople, you have juniors, you have people that are just coming into the market. So understanding those traits and really relying your experience based on the success that we've had in sales and in leadership, it's important to portray that so people can make their own decisions, make their own plans, but you have to coach through all those different things.
Right, right. I think that's a good kind of segue into, you talk about you can only focus on what you can control.
Absolutely.
And I personally, when you know that you've got certain things, you've got to hit certain numbers, and I relate to things, and again, coming back again to the holistic sales mastery kind of methodology, right?
Okay.
Being able to have a very good understanding when you talk about mindfulness and being able to say, hey, I have certain goals that I have to meet this month. And kind of doing and having the ability to envision what those goals are, and to really make sure that you understand what you're trying to achieve, not just going out day by day and into what, like, the physical world and saying, all right, this is what I'm going to do. But if you don't really take the time to understand how things like even meditation, even things that you can kind of come back and say, hey, I've got to bring this all in, right? And know what I'm focusing on. And then you got to let it go. Meaning, all right, now I can only focus on what I can control. I know what I'm going after. What I'm trying to get at as well is that we kind of go through our life day to day, just like doing what we got to do.
Great.
And if we don't take a step back sometimes and kind of say, hey, I can channel that energy and a lot of those things I'm trying to do into things like, whether it's a 5-minute meditation or whether it's being able to kind of really visualize your goals, it starts to help things roll in the direction you want it to. And so I like that you bring that up, because again, it's something that I think sales reps can benefit from, is having that approach and not just going out and winging it day to day and thinking they can have success.
Yeah, that definitely won't work. And in terms of the mindfulness, is important because it is a stressful business, right? But there's a lot of flexibility. It's rewarding, right?
Absolutely.
Sales is rewarding. So focusing, I'm all about positive energy.
Yeah.
So I'd rather focus on the positive instead of the negative. And again, that's mindfulness, right?
That's right.
How you do that, whether it's through meditation or how you think or how you train your brain.
Yeah.
But you have to have that sort of routine, right, into what you do in sales, in terms of making sure that mindfulness continues to be healthy.
That's it.
And is that working out? Is that eating better? Is that a combination of all things? All that should be part of that routine that you set for yourself to be able to see the finish line and be able to get the rewards that you're hoping that you're going to get, or the success that you're looking to have. So absolutely, I'm a true believer of that. I myself, I manage a large region, right? Today I manage all Latin America. I've managed North America before. So there's a lot of travel. There's a lot of going, shaking hands, looking at customers. Yeah. I have many countries where I have reps that I have to go visit and go see customers, etc. So that mindfulness is super important because that's a very hectic life to a certain degree. So you have that on top of all of your different responsibilities. I try to keep a routine that keeps me going, keeps me healthy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, having that positive energy, of that, that understanding and focusing on the good that it's going to come out of it, keeps me going even faster.
Right. Right.
And I think that, the mindfulness and training your brain to really focus on the things that are positive is really a strong part of what you want to accomplish every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things with you, for so many years, having to travel, but having to travel, like you said, internationally, right? There's a big difference. Travel's travel. It's hectic either way.
Right.
It takes you off your circadian rhythm. It takes you off a lot of things that you've got to stay, in line with. How have you been able through all these years, and you mentioned the mindfulness thing, which is important, and
Yeah.
you've got a good grasp of that. How would you say, when you're on the road a lot, do you try to stay as much as you can on the routine that you do at home? I know that's difficult, but maybe talk about that a little bit.
Sure, I do as much as I can, right? There's always the exceptions. You could be traveling to a country where time difference, uh, culturally difference. You know, I go to countries today that they have dinner at 9 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
When I'm at home, I'm done.
You're in bed.
Hopefully, way before 9 o'clock.
I'm in bed.
eating.
No, you're not.
So, but that's okay. You can, that alignment can disalign once in a while, as long as you know that you're gonna get back into it,
Mhm.
right? And then of course there's the noise. An airplane got delayed, you missed this or whatever. I've learned to really turn that off. Again, if I can't control it, I'm
Right.
not gonna worry about it.
Right.
I'll work my way around it. I'm gonna jump or go over that obstacle.
Right.
And if I can't control it, if I can't manage it, then I'm not gonna let it get to me. And I think that has really kept me in a way that now I travel. Yeah, things happen. Yeah, there's times that it's frustrating, but I try to get back to that thinking or that mindset that what can I do? There's nothing that I can do. Let me just wait for the next step, whatever that next step is. And that helps a lot.
Yeah, I tell you, that's a great point. And that's something that knowing you as long as I have, you've always been able, I think, to manage stress well. And I don't think you hide it, because some people can hide it, right? You know what I mean? Like, they just don't seem stressed, but you've always been able to, and it comes back though to the mindfulness piece, having that strength to be able to say, listen, I can get myself stressed out that the flights, I'm not going to get back home.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what's that going to do? That's going to compound, and there's going to be other things that I'm going to, be frustrated about. Or all that could lead to anxiety. I mean, there's so many things that can start to have that snowball effect. So
absolutely,
yeah, you've always been really good at being able to manage that, and I think that's the key.
I've had my moments. I'm human, right? We all have our moments. But I think if you recognize, right, at the end of the day, is recognizing your strength, your weaknesses, and then try to figure out how to work best through those things. And again, I'll repeat this again because I think it's so important. Just the whole thing about knowing that I can't manage what I can't control. Every time I remind myself of that, I know how to shift. I figure out a way, again, to jump over or go over that obstacle, or to say, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to go worry over here or try to do what I can here. So hopefully I can overset this piece, or I can find other ways to do what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think that mindset helps me a lot.
Refocus that energy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. With a little bit of time that we have left, one of the things I wanted to ask about, that was always, and I think it's always challenging for any sales rep, but again, especially for a technology sales rep, is how do you get, with the way the buyer is now, it's a new buyer, right? We won't go deep into that right now. That's kind of a whole other topic, but do you have anything that you have advice for your sales reps, maybe some of your younger ones? And again, I know that you're telling your managers, what's the best way to approach how these reps need to gain what I call is one of the most important commodities. It's attention, meaning the right attention, the right attention to that buyer that you're looking within those accounts. Anything that you can talk about with that, of maybe how you manage your managers to help reps in those situations?
I think one of the most important things, whether you're a junior seller or a senior seller, is understand your resources. Not only understand them in a way of what they do, but understand how to utilize them. Because early on, you have to understand what's your landscape. What exactly is it that I'm trying to accomplish based on what my customers are trying to accomplish on the products and services that I represent. Understand that. And once you understand that, and then you understand your resources, how you're going to utilize them, plan ahead, right? because there's so many ways to get to those sponsors or to those economic buyers. But once you get to those people, you have to be relevant. And to be relevant, you have to be creative, especially in this market. You might get to one of those people one time and one time only. So you got to make sure that how you get to those people is going to be something that's relevant, and that you're going to be able to establish a connection and continue from there. So plan ahead, understand your territory, understand your accounts. Listen, the best sellers that I've seen out there probably can handle maybe 8 to 10 accounts, especially in this environment.
Right. Yeah.
Now, what happens to those other 10 or 15 other accounts that they have? Understanding your resources, whether it's your your inside sales development reps or your partners, you have to understand and create a network. But that network has to be a value add network. So for example, partners today are critical. Partners are inside these large enterprises, these large companies, helping moving along all of these goals and business processes that companies are shifting constantly. But as vendors, we have a problem sometimes, right? That because you have a good product, you automatically think that this partner is going to sell your product. I still don't know. As you know, Scott, I have my own consulting company for 10 years, and I was on the other side of the fence. I never got up in the morning saying, I'm going to sell more of these products. No, I got up in the morning saying, I got to sell more of what I do today to keep the doors and the lights on, right?
Right.
The doors open and the lights on. So understand, get to know where the value is with these partners, understand their business, and then how do your products and services really integrate to create what I call a pull-through strategy. Right. So now these partners can sell more what they do today, consulting dollars, integration services, whatever it is. But bottom line is that's all got to be part of the planning.
Yeah.
Today, a lot of times you see people that plan around the strength of what they think their product is. Well, no, that's fine, but also understand what the value is.
Right.
Translate all these technical assets into business assets, right? Because that at the end of the day is what's going to be relevant to those people that are going to be interested in buying from you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well said. And I think it even goes back to, and it's elementary, it's basic, but a SWOT analysis. Right? Being able to have for your accounts, your territory, each of those accounts, what is your strength within what you sell to that specific company? Because it's always different. It could be different. And taking the time, like you said, to plan and prepare, right? To plan and to really have a good strategy. And this is tough. I get it. If you've got 40, 50 accounts, you need to typically you're focusing on that 80-20 rule still typically, but yeah, you've got to be able to, at least with those top accounts, have a very good strategy in place and take the time to do that.
And again, your resources, you and I have a lot of analogies on sports.
Yeah.
Account executives are the quarterbacks.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. But a quarterback can't win by himself.
Yeah.
You need your people, right? You need everybody that is playing their positions to understand what you're trying to accomplish, what that next play is going to be. So sales plays, how are we going to go to the different buyers and the different roles? Right. Those where your resources come in. Where's the strength of that partner? How do I utilize my inside sales rep, or how do I use my development rep? At the end of the day, it's got to be based on my strategy. It's got to be based on what I'm planning, and they're all part of that. Right? This is a team effort. Right. This is not a just one person trying to figure it out, but somebody has to be the quarterback.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. You have your coach, you have your quarterback, and you have your team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for this first episode, Robert. I think it's been fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Will you come back?
Absolutely. If you have me.
Maybe we'll talk, maybe we'll talk partners, because I know reps a lot of times do struggle with when to use a partner, but not just when, but how the best way to use a partner.
That's been a big success of how I strategize and how I'll go about partners. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Awesome. All right, brother. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
All right, man.
You got it. Bye-bye.